Teho wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked across his green fields. The purple sky of Kepler 442c was getting darker as the twin suns set behind the mountains. His farm was small, but it worked well. The earth crops grew strong in the alien soil he had spent 5 years making perfect. He walked toward his house, a simple building made from local stone and metal from his old ship. Tomorrow he would harvest the corn and send it to the colony town 300 miles away. It was quiet work, the kind he wanted after leaving the military. No more wars, no more dead friends, just him and his plants. The ground shook. Teho stopped walking and looked up. Something big was coming from the sky. At first he thought it was a ship, maybe traders or colonists. But as it got closer, he saw he was wrong. Very wrong. 12 creatures flew down from the clouds. They were huge, each one as big as a small aircraft. Their bodies looked like dragons from old Earth stories, but these were different. Their scales were like living crystals that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. Their wings moved without sound, and their long necks curved like graceful question marks. Teho had seen many alien creatures in his years as a soldier and farmer, but nothing like this. The dragons landed in his biggest field, their crystal, claws digging into the soft earth. The lead dragon was the largest, with scales that shifted from deep purple to bright silver. It lowered its great head and looked directly at Teho with eyes like liquid starlight. Teho's hand moved toward the old plasma rifle hanging by his door. Then he stopped. The dragon's eyes held no anger or hunger, only sadness and something that looked like hope. The dragon opened its mouth and made sounds unlike anything Teho had ever heard. The sounds were musical, like a mix of singing and wind chimes. His universal translator, hanging from his belt, began to work on the strange language. Words formed slowly in his earpiece. Human, help, need, young ones, dying. Teho blinked. These creatures could talk. They were asking for help. "You can understand me?" Teho asked, speaking slowly. The translator must have worked both ways. The dragon's head moved up and down. "Yes, understand. You, human with growing knowledge. We need help." More dragons moved closer, forming a circle around Teho but keeping their distance. He could see that some of them carried smaller dragons on their backs. The little ones were beautiful but looked sick. Their crystal scales were dull and gray instead of bright and colorful. "My name is Teho," he said. "What kind of help do you need?" The lead dragon made more musical sounds. The translator worked faster now, getting used to their language. "I am called. The word does not translate, but you may call me Bora. We are the keepers of gardens. Our young ones are sick. They cannot eat. They cannot grow strong. We have watched you make plants grow in dead soil. You have the knowledge we need." Teho looked at the sick baby dragons. As a father, he understood the pain in Bora's voice. "How long have they been sick?" "Many seasons. Half of our young ones die before they can fly. We have tried everything we know. You are our last hope." Another dragon, smaller than Bora, but with scales like green emeralds, came forward. "I am Nari. I study the lifeways of our people. We have traveled far to find you. Your kind, humans. You make life grow where it should not grow. This we have seen." Teho thought about this. He had come to this planet because the soil was almost dead. It took him years to make it rich enough to grow earth plants. But how did these dragons know? About his work? "How did you find me?" he asked. Nari's eyes sparkled. "We see more than your eyes can see. We feel the life energy that flows through all growing things. Your farm shines like a star to us. The dead soil here now lives and breathes. This is great magic." "It's not magic," Teho said. "It's science, agriculture, I mixed earth bacteria with local minerals and organic matter. I studied the soil chemistry and adjusted the pH levels. I used crop rotation and companion planting. The dragons looked at each other. Their translator was having trouble with his technical words. You speak of things we do not understand, Bora said. But the result we can see, dead earth made to live. Will you help our young ones live too? Tejo looked at the baby dragons again. They were breathing hard, like it was difficult for them. One of them tried to lift its head but was too weak. Its parent nuzzled it gently with sounds of worry. He had left military service because he was tired of death. Here was a chance to save lives instead of taking them. I'll try, he said. But I need to understand what's wrong with them. What do they usually eat? They eat the crystal moss that grows in the deep caves of our world, Nari explained. But something has changed. The moss no longer gives them strength. They grow weak and fade like dying stars. Tejo nodded. It sounded like a nutrition problem, maybe a change in the chemical makeup of their food source. He had seen similar problems with earth crops when soil conditions changed. I need to examine one of the sick young ones, he said, and I need to know more about this crystal moss. Can you tell me about your world? Bora looked at the other dragons. They made soft musical sounds to each other, like they were having a discussion. Finally, Bora turned back to Tejo. We will share our knowledge with you, human Tejo. But know this. What you learn about us must stay secret. There are others in the galaxy who would use our knowledge for harm. Tejo thought about the Galactic Senate and the various military groups that controlled most of known space. I understand. I'm just a farmer now. I don't talk to the authorities unless I have to. Then we will begin, Bora said. But first, you must understand what we truly are. We are not simple creatures. We are the children of the first gardeners, the ones who planted the seeds of life across the empty worlds when the galaxy was young. Tejo felt his world shift. These weren't just intelligent animals asking for help. They were representatives of an ancient civilization. And somehow, they believed a simple human farmer could save them. The purple sky grew darker and the first stars appeared. Tejo looked at his small house, his quiet fields, his peaceful life. Tomorrow, everything would change. Come, he said to Bora. Let's start with examining the sick ones. I have medical equipment in my workshop. As they walked toward his buildings, Tejo wondered what he was getting himself into. He had wanted a quiet life away from galactic politics and alien conflicts. Instead, he had just agreed to help save an ancient race of crystal dragons. But looking at the hope in their starlight eyes, he knew he had made the right choice. The next morning, Tejo woke to find the dragons still in his field. They had slept standing up, their crystal scales dim in the early light. As the twin suns rose, their bodies began to glow softly, like they were powered by sunlight. Bora approached his house as he came outside with his medical scanner and sample kit. The dragon's huge form cast a shadow over his small workshop building. We are ready to begin, Bora said through the translator. Our youngest, the one we call Hana, is the most sick. Will you examine her? Hana was about the size of a large horse, but her crystal scales were gray and cracked. Her breathing was shallow, and her eyes were dim. When Tejo approached with his scanner, she tried to lift her head but couldn't. It's okay, Tejo said softly, the same way he used to talk to his own children when they were sick. I'm here to help. He ran the medical scanner over Hana's body. The readings confused him at first. Her body chemistry was unlike anything in his databases. Her cells used a form of energy he had never seen before, something that looked like controlled lightning mixed with plant photosynthesis. This is interesting, he said to Nari, who was watching carefully. She's not exactly animal or plant. She's something else entirely. We are children of crystal and starlight, Nari said. We eat energy as much as we eat matter. The crystal moss from our world feeds both our bodies and our spirits. Tejo took tissue samples from Hana's scales and saliva. Under his microscope, he saw cells that looked like tiny living gems. They should have been bright and active, but instead they were dark and still. "Tell me about your world," he said as he worked. "What has changed there?" Bora settled down beside the workshop, her great bulk making the ground shake slightly. "Our world is called Luminos. It has great caves that go deep into the planet's heart. The caves are filled with magnetic fields that sing with power. In these singing caves, the crystal moss grows. For thousands of your years, our young ones have eaten this moss and grown strong," Nari added. "But 50 years ago, something began to change. The moss still grows, but it no longer feeds our children properly." Tejo looked up from his microscope. "What happened 50 years ago? Any major events on your planet?" The dragons made soft, sad sounds to each other. Finally, Bora spoke. "That was when we had to seal the deep caves. The mining ships came to steal our crystal gardens. We had to protect them, so we closed the paths and hid our world from the galaxy." "Mining ships?" Tejo asked. "Who was mining your world?" "The hegemony forces," Nari said, her voice turning hard. "They wanted our crystals for their weapons. They did not understand that the crystals were alive, that they were part of our food chain. They simply took what they wanted." Tejo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The hegemony was the military alliance that controlled most of human space. He had worked for them during his military service. "When you sealed the caves, did it change the environment inside?" he asked, trying to focus on the science instead of politics. "Yes," Bora said. "The magnetic fields became trapped. They do not flow as they once did. The moss grows, but it grows wrong." Tejo nodded. This was making sense now. The dragon's food source had changed its chemical makeup when the cave environment was altered. It was like a plant that stops producing vitamins when the soil conditions change. He spent the morning analyzing his samples. What he found made him excited and worried at the same time. "I think I know what's wrong," he told the gathered dragons. "Your crystal moss has stopped producing a key nutrient that your young need to process energy. It's like, imagine if all the food on your world suddenly lost its salt. You could eat as much as you wanted, but you would still get sick." "Can this be fixed?" Nari asked. "Maybe," Tejo said. "But I need to understand more about your biology and your planet's environment." That's when Nari did something that changed everything. "I will share our memories with you," she said. "But know that once you see our true history, you will understand why we fear your kind." Before Tejo could ask what she meant, Nari pressed her crystalline forehead against his. The world exploded into light and images. He saw Luminos as it once was, a beautiful world of singing crystal caves and gardens of living light. He saw the dragons in their glory, tending to vast growing systems that stretched between the stars. They were gardeners on a galactic scale, seeding barren worlds with life. But then came the younger races, humans and others. They wanted the dragons' technology for weapons and conquest. Wars were fought over dragon knowledge. Worlds were destroyed. The dragons, who had never known violence, were forced to defend themselves. The images showed dragon after dragon falling, to energy weapons made from their own crystals. He saw entire dragon families fleeing to hidden worlds. He felt their sadness as they watched the garden worlds they had created being turned into military bases and mining operations. Finally, he saw the last retreat to Luminos and the sealing of the caves. The dragons had chosen isolation over extinction. When the vision ended, Tejo staggered backward. Tears ran down his face. He understood now why the dragons had been testing him, why they were so careful about trust. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't know. Most humans don't know what we did to your people. Your military records were classified, Bora said sadly. The galaxy believes we simply disappeared. They do not know we were driven away, Tejo thought. About his own military service. How many operations had he been part of that were really about stealing from other species? How many of his missions had been labeled as defense when they were really about taking resources? Why did you come to me? He asked. Why trust a human? Because we are dying, Nari said simply. And because we have been watching you. For 5 years you have grown life where there was none. You take nothing from the land except what you need. You work with nature instead of fighting it. Perhaps your kind can learn to be gardeners instead of warriors. Tejo looked at little Hana, still lying weakly in the sunlight. He thought about his own children back on Earth. His son was dead because of military stupidity, and his daughter so young was working on a research ship somewhere in the outer systems. I'll help you, he said. Not just because you asked, but because it's the right thing to do. Bora's eyes brightened. Then we will teach you the old ways of growing, and perhaps together we can find a new way to heal our children. Tejo spent the rest of the day learning about dragon biology and their crystal-based ecosystem. It was the most complex agricultural challenge he had ever faced. But as he worked, he began to see possibilities. I have an idea, he said as the purple sunset began. But it will require combining human farming techniques with your crystal growing technology. Are you willing to trust me that far? The dragons looked at each other, having one of their musical conversations. Finally, Bora turned back to him. We will trust you, Tejo the grower. But know this, if word of our survival reaches the wrong people, we will have to disappear again, and this time we may not survive the journey. Tejo nodded. He was asking them to risk everything on his ability to solve a problem that had defeated their best minds for 50 years. As night fell and the dragons settled into their sleeping positions, Tejo sat in his workshop looking at the data he had collected. Somewhere in the genetic code of crystal moss and dragon cells was the answer. He just had to find it. Outside, baby Hana made a small, weak sound. Her mother nuzzled her gently, humming a lullaby that sounded like wind through crystal chimes. Tejo had work to do. 3 weeks passed as Tejo worked day and night on the problem. His workshop became a strange laboratory where earth science met dragon crystal technology. The dragons shared their knowledge freely, teaching him how their living crystals could store and transform energy. The breakthrough came when Tejo realized he was thinking about the problem wrong. It's not a medical issue, he told Bora one morning as they stood in his experimental garden. It's agricultural. Your crystal moss isn't sick. It's hungry. Bora tilted her great head. Hungry? But it grows as it always has. It grows, but it can't get the nutrients it needs from the sealed environment, Tejo explained. Think of it like this. Imagine a plant that needs both sunlight and rain. If you put it in a greenhouse, it gets light but no rain. It grows, but it's missing something essential. Nari moved closer, her green scales sparkling with interest. What does the moss need that it cannot get? Tejo pointed to a section of his garden where he had been experimenting. Magnetic field flow. Your crystal moss needs the magnetic energy to move through it like water through soil. When you sealed the caves, you stopped that flow. The moss can't process the minerals it needs. But we cannot unseal the caves, said Kyung-Su, a large dragon with red scales who rarely spoke. The moment we do, the mining ships will return. Our young ones will die anyway when our world is stripped bare. Tejo had been thinking about this problem too. What if we don't need to unseal the caves? What if we can create the same environment here? He led them to his workshop where he had been building something that looked like a garden crossed with a computer. Crystal formations that the dragons had grown were connected to earth plants through a network of mineral solutions and electromagnetic fields. I call it a symbiotic garden, Taeho said. It combines symbiosis and hydroponics. The crystals create magnetic fields that flow through the growing medium. The earth plants process nutrients that the crystal moss can't get from its natural environment. And the crystal moss provides energy that makes the earth plants grow bigger and stronger. Hana, who had been getting slowly weaker despite their care, was brought to the experimental garden. Taeho had prepared a small section with crystal moss that had been grown in the symbiotic system. Will it work? Nari asked, worry clear in her voice. I don't know, Taeho admitted, but it's our best hope. They placed Hana near the enhanced crystal moss. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the young dragon began to eat. Her dull scales started to show tiny sparks of color. It's working, Bora whispered, afraid to speak too loudly and break the magic. But not everyone was happy with the experiment. Kyung-soo and several other dragons had been watching from a distance, their expressions dark. This is dangerous, Kyung-soo said, approaching the group. We are sharing our secrets with a human. What happens when others of his kind learn what we can do? Taeho is different, Nari said. He seeks to grow life, not destroy it. He is still human, Kyung-soo replied. And humans always want more. First, they will want our crystal growing techniques. Then they will want our energy manipulation abilities. Finally, they will want our worlds. Taeho understood Kyung-soo's fear. You're right to be worried, he said. My people have a history of taking what they want, but maybe some humans can learn to be different. Words, Kyung-soo said. Easy to speak when you want something. Before anyone could respond, they heard the sound of aircraft approaching. Taeho looked up to see a small transport ship coming, down from orbit. His heart sank when he saw the markings. It was a supply ship from the colony. Hide, he told the dragons. Get to the forest behind my house. But it was too late. The ship was already landing, and its pilot had certainly seen the massive crystal creatures in the field. The ship's door opened, and out stepped someone Taeho hadn't expected to see. His daughter, So Young, ran toward him, her dark hair flying behind her. Dad, she called. I got leave from my research ship and thought I'd surprise you. She stopped dead when she saw the dragons. Her mouth fell open. So Young, Taeho said carefully. I can explain everything. His daughter was 25 years old and worked as a biological researcher for the Galactic Survey Corps. She was smart, curious, and unfortunately had a direct communication link to military headquarters. Dad, she said slowly, are those actual dragons? Bora, who had been watching the family reunion, stepped forward. Your offspring has the same life energy as you, she said to Taeho. She is welcome here. So Young's translator picked up Bora's words. She staggered backward. It talks. The dragon talks. Daughter of Taeho, Nari said gently, your father is helping us save our children. He has shown great kindness to our people. So Young looked from the dragons to her father to the experimental garden. Her scientific mind was working fast. Dad, do you realize what this means? These creatures have technology we've never seen. The energy readings from their crystals are off the charts. That's exactly why they've been hiding, Taeho said. Every time they've tried to help other species, those species have tried to exploit them. So Young walked closer to little Hana, who was still eating the enhanced crystal moss. She's sick? They all are, Taeho explained. Their traditional food source was disrupted when they had to hide from the hegemony mining operations. I'm trying to create a substitute. A symbiotic agricultural system, So Young said, examining his work. Dad, this is brilliant. You're not just feeding them, you're creating a whole new ecosystem. Kyung-soo made a sound of disgust. Another human who sees opportunity in our suffering. But So Young surprised him. She sat down near Hana and spoke directly to the young dragon. I'm sorry your people have been hurt. My father is a good man. If he says he can help you, he will. Something in her voice made Kyung-soo pause. So Young wasn't looking at the dragons like they were resources to be used. She was looking at them like they were people who needed help. You work for the military, Kyung-soo said. You will report our location. So Young looked at her father. Do you trust them, Dad? With my life, Tae-ho said. Then I trust them too. She reached into her communication pack and pulled out her emergency beacon. Without hesitation, she crushed it under her boot. There. Now I can't report anything even if I wanted to. The dragons made surprise sounds. Even Kyung-soo looked shocked. Why did you do that? Bora asked. So-young smiled. Because my father taught me that sometimes the right choice is more important than the safe choice. Besides, I'm a biologist. This is the most amazing life form I've ever encountered. I want to help. Over the following days, So-young proved her worth. Her fresh perspective and advanced equipment helped Tae-ho refine the symbiotic growing system. More importantly, she had an idea that changed everything. What if we don't just create food for the dragons? She said one evening as they worked, late in the laboratory. What if we create a new form of agriculture that helps both species? She showed them her analysis of the enhanced plants. The earth crops grown in the symbiotic system are producing compounds I've never seen before. They're more nutritious, more resistant to disease, and they seem to have mild psychoactive properties that increase empathy and environmental awareness. What does that mean? Tae-ho asked. It means that humans who eat these crops might become more like you, Dad, more focused on growing and nurturing instead of taking and consuming. Nari's eyes brightened. Your daughter speaks of the old dream. Before the galaxy was divided by war, we hoped to teach all species the gardener's way. But would humans accept such change? Bora asked. So-young grinned. Leave that to me. I know how to write a research report that will get attention. As little Hana grew stronger each day, eating the new symbiotic crystal moss, Tae-ho began to see a future he had never imagined. Not just saving the dragons, but creating something entirely new, a partnership between species that could change how the galaxy approached life itself. But late at night, when he checked the communication logs, he saw concerning messages from the colony. Supply ships were asking why he hadn't responded to routine check-ins. Military patrols were noting unusual energy readings from his sector. Time was running out. Soon, someone would come to investigate. The military arrived on a Tuesday morning, just as Hana was taking her first strong flight around Tae-ho's farm. 3 hegemony cruisers dropped out of hyperspace and sent down a full battalion of soldiers. Tae-ho watched from his house as the transport ships landed in his fields, crushing some of his crops. The dragons had hidden in the forest, but their crystal gardens were still visible to anyone who knew what to look for. Commander Park Do-hyun stepped out of the lead transport. Tae-ho recognized him immediately. They had served together during the Centauri campaign. Do-hyun was a good soldier but followed orders without question. Tae-ho Kim, Do-hyun said, walking up to the farmhouse with armed guards behind him. You've been out of contact for 6 weeks. Colony Command was worried. I've been busy with the harvest, Tae-ho replied, trying to sound calm. Everything's fine here. Do-hyun looked around the farm, his eyes noting the unusual crystal formations scattered through the fields. These energy readings were picking up. Care to explain them? New farming techniques, Tae-ho said. I've been experimenting with mineral supplements. Mineral supplements that register as weapons-grade energy sources? Do-hyun pulled out a scanner and pointed it toward the forest. There's something big out there, Tae-ho. Multiple large life forms with energy signatures we've never seen before. So-young came out of the house, her research uniform clean and official. Commander, I'm Dr. So-young Kim, Galactic Survey Corps. I can explain the readings. Do-hyun looked surprised. Dr. Kim, your reports on the Vega system impressed a lot of people. What are you doing here? Research, So Young said smoothly. My father's farm has become the site of some remarkable discoveries. I've been documenting a new form of symbiotic agriculture that could revolutionize food production across the galaxy. What kind of discoveries? Do-hyun asked, but his scanner was still pointed toward the forest. That's when Nari made the decision. That changed everything. She emerged from the tree line, her emerald scales gleaming in the sunlight. The soldiers immediately raised their weapons. "Wait!" Taeho shouted, stepping between the guns and the dragon. "Stand down, civilian," Do-hyun ordered, but his voice was shaky. "That's a Class 5 unknown life form." "Her name is Nari," So Young said calmly, "and she's the most intelligent being I've ever met." Nari approached slowly, her movements graceful and non-threatening. When she spoke, her voice was clear through everyone's translators. "Greetings, humans of war. I am Nari of the Crystal Gardens. We come in peace to seek help for our dying young." Do-hyun's weapon wavered. She's talking. "We are the people. You call dragons," Nari continued. "We are the gardeners who once seeded life across the empty worlds. Your people drove us into hiding 50 years ago." Do-hyun's face went pale. "Dragons, the first gardeners. I thought they were myths." "Not myths," Bora said, emerging from the forest with the rest of the herd. "We are very real, and we are very tired of hiding." The sight of 12 massive crystal dragons was too much for some of the soldiers. Several of them took steps backward. But Do-hyun held his ground, though Taeho could see his hands shaking. "Command needs to know about this immediately," Do-hyun said, reaching for his communication device. "Commander, wait," So Young said. "Before you make any reports, you need to understand what's really happening here." She led them to the experimental garden where little Hana was playing with crystal formations that grew as she touched them. The young dragon had regained most of her strength and was now helping to tend the hybrid plants. "This is Hana," So Young explained. "She was dying from malnutrition until my father developed a new agricultural system that combines human farming with dragon biotechnology." Do-hyun stared at the symbiotic garden. His scanner was going crazy with energy readings. "This technology, do you understand what this could mean for the hegemony?" "It's not technology," Taeho said firmly. "It's cooperation. The dragons aren't machines to be exploited. They're people who need help." "People or not, this changes everything," Do-hyun said. "Dragon biotechnology could solve the food crises on a dozen worlds. It could give us unlimited, clean energy. Command will want access to everything." Kyung-soo, who had been listening from the forest edge, stepped forward. His red scales were dark with anger. "And there it is, the human desire to take and use and exploit." "I'm just following orders," Do-hyun said, but he sounded defensive. "Your orders," Nari said sadly, "are why we had to hide in the first place." Tai-ho looked at his old military friend. "Do-hyun, you've seen what we've built here. This isn't about weapons or conquest. It's about saving lives." "I have my orders, Taeho," Do-hyun said. "I have to report the presence of First Gardener survivors. The Galactic Senate has been looking for them for decades." "Why?" Bora asked. "So they can finish what they started 50 years ago?" Do-hyun looked uncomfortable. "The official records say the First Gardeners disappeared voluntarily. There's nothing about driving them away." "Of course there isn't," Kyung-soo said bitterly. "The victors write the history books." So Young stepped forward with her data pad. "Commander, before you make your report, look at this data. The symbiotic crops we're growing here aren't just more nutritious. They have properties that could help solve some of humanity's biggest problems." She showed him the analysis of the enhanced plants. Increased empathy, reduced aggression, better environmental awareness. Humans who eat these crops become more cooperative, more focused on long-term thinking instead of short-term gain. You're talking about changing human nature, Do-hyun said. Maybe, So-young admitted. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Do-hyun was quiet for a long moment, looking at the data. Tae-ho could see him struggling between his duty as a soldier and what he was learning. There's something else you need to, No, Nari said quietly. This meeting was not by chance. We have been watching human expansion for 50 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves again. What do you mean? Do-hyun asked. We have been testing your kind, Bora explained. Looking for humans who could be trusted with our knowledge, who would use it to grow rather than destroy. Your father passed that test, Nari said to So-young. And now we face a choice. Do we trust humanity with a second chance or do we disappear forever? Do-hyun looked around at the dragons, the experimental garden, the impossible beauty of what had been created. What are you asking me to do? Help us, Tae-ho said. Don't report this as a military asset to be exploited. Report it as a first contact situation requiring diplomatic handling. I could lose my commission, Do-hyun said. You could also help save 2 species, So-young added. Little Hana, who had been playing quietly, walked over to Do-hyun. She looked up at him with bright, curious eyes and made a small chirping sound. Do-hyun knelt down to her level. Hello, little one? Hana touched his hand with her crystal claw. The moment of contact sent a wave of emotion through the commander. Hope, joy, love for all living things. For just an instant, he felt what the dragons felt, the deep connection to life and growth that drove them. When Hana pulled away, Do-hyun was crying. I've never felt anything like that, he whispered. That is the gift of the gardeners, Nari said. The ability to feel the life force that connects all things. It is why we cannot bear to see others suffer. Do-hyun stood up slowly, wiping his eyes. He looked at his soldiers, who had all lowered their weapons. Stand down, all units, he ordered. This is now a diplomatic contact situation. All weapons on safety. He turned to his communication officer. Send a message to command. Tell them we've discovered an important agricultural research project that requires immediate attention from the diplomatic corps, not the military. Sir? The communication officer asked. Do it, Do-hyun said firmly, and classify everything we've seen here until proper diplomatic protocols can be established. Kyung-soo looked surprised. You would disobey your orders for us? Do-hyun smiled sadly. I'm not disobeying them. I'm interpreting them in the best interests of everyone involved, but I can only buy you time. Once this gets to the diplomatic corps, it will eventually reach the Galactic Senate, and then the real test begins, Bora said. Whether humanity as a whole can choose cooperation over exploitation. Tae-ho looked at his daughter, his old military friend, and the dragons who had trusted him with their lives. The peaceful days on his farm were over. Now they faced the challenge of convincing an entire galaxy to change its way of thinking. But as he watched Hana playing with the hybrid plants, making them grow with her touch, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. 2 weeks later, the diplomatic ship arrived. But it wasn't alone. Behind it came 3 hegemony battle cruisers and a mining vessel that made Tae-ho's blood run cold. The same type of ship that had driven the dragons into hiding 50 years. Ago Ambassador Chen Wei-ming was a small, sharp-eyed woman who spoke in careful, measured words. She listened politely as Tae-ho and So-young explained the situation, examined the symbiotic gardens, and even allowed Nari to share some of their history through memory contact. But when she was done learning, her decision was swift and brutal. This is indeed a remarkable discovery, she announced to the assembled group. The Galactic Senate has decided that dragon biotechnology represents a vital strategic resource. For the good of all civilized species, it must be studied and developed under proper oversight. What does that mean? Tae-ho asked, though he feared he already knew. It means the dragons will be relocated to a research facility where their abilities can be properly studied. The symbiotic agricultural techniques will be developed by qualified scientists, and this planet will be designated as a resource extraction zone. Bora's crystal scales darkened with anger. You mean we will be prisoners again? You will be honored guests contributing to the advancement of galactic civilization, Ambassador Chen replied smoothly. And our young ones? Nari asked. The ones who are still sick on our homeworld? They will receive the best medical care available once we understand your biology better. Kyung-soo made a sound like breaking crystal. More lies. You want to dissect us to learn our secrets. Ambassador Chen's expression didn't change. I understand your concerns, but this decision has been made at the highest levels. The greater good must take priority over individual preferences. That's when So Young dropped her bombshell. Ambassador, there's something you need to know about the dragon's condition, she said, stepping forward with her datapad. The illness affecting their young isn't natural, it's artificial. Everyone turned to stare at her. Even the dragons looked surprised. What do you mean? Ambassador Chen asked. So Young displayed her genetic analysis on a portable hologram. I've been studying the dragon genome for weeks. Hidden in their DNA is what we would call a genetic lock. It prevents their digestive systems from processing certain nutrients unless specific conditions are met. A genetic lock? Taeho asked. But that would mean... It means their ancestors designed them this way, So Young said. The dragons can only access their full biotechnology abilities when they're in the presence of another species that approaches them with genuine compassion and cooperation. Nari's eyes widened. The test of hearts. I thought it was just a legend. Your ancestors weren't just hiding from exploiters, So Young continued. They were making sure their technology could never be stolen. Only a species that genuinely cares about dragon welfare can unlock their abilities. Ambassador Chen frowned. That's impossible. Genetic locks of that complexity are completely possible if you're an ancient civilization with millions of years of biotechnology experience, So Young interrupted. The dragon's ancestors saw what happened when their gifts were misused, so they built in a safeguard. Bora looked at Taeho with something like wonder. Your kindness to us. It was not just helpful, it was necessary. Without genuine cooperation, our technology cannot function. Which explains why the symbiotic gardens work, Taeho said, understanding dawning. It's not just about mixing our techniques with yours. It's about our species working together in harmony. Ambassador Chen's face had gone pale. Are you telling me that forced cooperation won't work? That we can't simply extract the information we need? Try it, Kyung-soo said grimly. Take us to your laboratories, put us in cages. See how much our abilities help you then. The ambassador turned to her military escort. Captain, prepare the detention facilities. But before anyone could move, the ground began to shake. The dragons were doing something Taeho had never seen before. Their crystal scales were resonating together, creating a harmonic frequency that made the air itself vibrate. What are they doing? Ambassador Chen demanded. They're calling for help, So Young said, checking her instruments. That harmonic frequency is traveling faster than light. It's a quantum communication system. The shaking stopped, and the dragons settled back into normal postures. But there was something different about them now. Their scales were brighter, more alive. Help is coming, Bora said simply. What kind of help? Ambassador Chen asked. Her question was answered an hour later when the sky filled with ships. Not human ships or any design Taeho recognized. These were crystalline vessels that looked grown rather than built, beautiful and organic and clearly alien. The Gardener fleet, Nari whispered. I thought they were all destroyed. Hundreds of dragon ships materialized in orbit around the planet. They didn't attack or threaten. They simply waited. A new voice spoke through everyone's translators, deep and ancient and filled with power. Greetings, young species. We are the keepers of the first garden. We have come to witness your choice. Ambassador Chen's military escort was frantically trying to contact their battle cruisers, but something was interfering with their communications. We mean no harm, the ancient voice continued. But we will not allow our children to be enslaved again. You face the same choice your ancestors faced 50 years ago. Will you choose cooperation or conquest? A new dragon landed near the group. This one was larger than any they had seen, ancient beyond measure, with scales that seemed to contain entire galaxies. I am Elder Sungmin, the ancient dragon said. I was there when your kind first reached the stars. I hoped then that you might be ready for the gardener's path. I was disappointed. Ambassador Chen found her voice. The Galactic Senate has jurisdiction here. These creatures are on human territory. Elder Sungmin's laugh was like the sound of solar winds through cosmic dust. Child, we were tending gardens among the stars when your species was learning to make fire. This planet, these stars, all of it was seeded by us in ages past. We do not recognize your territorial claims. Then what do you want? Ambassador Chen asked. To see if 50 years of growth have taught your kind wisdom, Elder Sungmin replied. My young ones here tell me that some humans have learned the gardener's way. Is this true of your species as a whole? Taeho stepped forward. Elder, not all humans are ready for what you offer, but some of us are. Maybe that's enough to start with. Perhaps, Elder Sungmin said. But the choice must be made by those in power, not just by individuals. The ancient dragon turned to Ambassador Chen. You speak for your government, human. Choose now. Will you try to take what you want by force, knowing that it will not work? Or will you accept partnership, knowing that it requires you to change your ways? Ambassador Chen looked at her military escort, then at the dragon ships filling the sky, then at little Hana, who was still playing peacefully in the garden. What would partnership look like? She asked finally. It would mean working with us, not studying us, Bora said. Sharing knowledge freely instead of trying to control it. Learning to tend the galaxy instead of exploiting it. And if we refuse? Elder Sungmin's expression was sad but firm. Then we disappear again. But this time, we take our gifts with us. No more dragon-touched worlds producing unusual crops. No more mystery energy sources that your scientists can't quite explain. No more subtle influences that help keep your most aggressive tendencies in check. You've been helping us? So Young asked, surprised. For 50 years, we have been seeding beneficial influences throughout human space, Nari explained, hoping to guide your development toward wisdom, but we grow tired of hiding. Ambassador Chen was quiet for a long time. Tai Ho could see her, weighing options, calculating political consequences. Finally, she spoke. I'll need to consult with the Senate. This decision is beyond my authority. Then consult, Elder Sungmin said. But know this, we will not wait forever, and we will accept nothing less than genuine partnership. As the ambassador's ship departed to carry the message to the Galactic Senate, Taeho found himself standing, in his garden with dragons ancient and young around him. The peaceful life he had sought was gone forever, but looking at Hana, who was now healthy and strong, teaching the hybrid plants to grow in new patterns, he realized he wouldn't change anything. Whatever happens next, he told Bora, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for proving that trust was not misplaced, she replied. In the distance, the dragon fleet waited among the stars, patient as gardeners watching seeds grow. The future of two species hung in the balance, waiting for humanity to decide what kind of civilization it wanted to be. The Galactic Senate debated for 3 months. During that time, Taeho's farm became the most important place in human space. Diplomats, scientists, and military leaders arrived daily to see the symbiotic gardens and meet the dragons. Not all the visits were friendly. Several attempts were made to capture dragon tissue samples or steel cutting from the hybrid plants. Each time, the would-be thieves found their equipment mysteriously malfunctioning. The dragons, it seemed, had ways of protecting themselves that didn't involve violence. But there were also positive visits. Dr. Maria Santos, a leading agricultural scientist, spent 2 weeks learning the symbiotic growing techniques. She left with tears in her eyes, saying it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Commander Park Do-hyun returned several times, each visit making him more convinced that cooperation was the right path. He began writing reports that painted a very different picture than what the military wanted to hear. The breakthrough came when little Hannah did something unexpected. During a visit from Senator James Morrison, the head of the Senate Military Committee, Hannah approached the stern-faced politician. Morrison had been arguing all day that dragon technology should be controlled by military authorities for the good of human security. Hannah, now fully grown into a young adult dragon with scales like living rainbows, simply walked up to Morrison and offered him a crystal flower she had grown. "For you," she said in perfect English. She had been learning human languages at an incredible rate. Morrison took the flower, expecting it to be just a pretty gift. But the moment he touched it, his expression changed. His face softened, and wonder filled his eyes. What is this?" he whispered. "It's hope," Hannah said simply. "Hope that your kind and mine can grow beautiful things together." The crystal flower was more than just beautiful. It contained concentrated samples of the beneficial compounds from the symbiotic crops. Morrison spent the rest of his visit in a state of enhanced empathy and environmental awareness. When he returned to the Senate, his speech changed everything. "Fellow senators," he said, standing before the assembled representatives of humanity, "I have seen the future, and it is not built on conquest or control. It is built on cooperation and growth." He held up Hannah's crystal flower, which still glowed with soft inner light. "The dragons offer us partnership in something greater than empire. They offer us the chance to become gardeners of the galaxy." The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity officially chose cooperation over conquest. The treaty signing took place in Taiho's garden, with representatives from dozens of species watching via hologram. Elder Sungmin and Senator Morrison signed documents that established the first interspecies gardening accord. But the real celebration happened when the first group of human volunteers arrived to begin training in symbiotic agriculture. Among them was Taiho's daughter So-young, who had resigned her military research position to become an ambassador between species. "Are you sure about this?" Taiho asked her as she prepared to leave for the dragon homeworld of Luminos. "Dad, you taught me that growing things is the most important work in the universe," she said. "Now I get to help grow a new kind of civilization." The changes began slowly but spread quickly. The first symbiotic farms appeared on a dozen human worlds. Crops grew larger and more nutritious. More importantly, the people who ate them became more cooperative, more focused on long-term thinking, more connected to the natural world. Crime rates dropped. Environmental restoration projects increased. Conflicts between human colonies decreased as people became more willing to work together instead of competing. The dragons, meanwhile, began opening their hidden worlds to selected partners. Teams of humans and dragons worked together to restore damaged ecosystems and create new garden worlds that supported multiple species. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some groups resisted the changes, claiming that the symbiotic crops were altering human nature in unacceptable ways. There were protests and even a few violent incidents. But as more people experienced the benefits of the gardener's way, opposition weakened. When you could feed your family better crops, breathe cleaner air, and live in a more peaceful community, it was hard to argue against the changes. 5 years after first contact, Tejo stood in what had once been his small farm. It was now the center of a vast garden that stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction. Crystal formations and earth plants grew together in patterns that seemed to pulse with life itself. Hana, now a full adult and one of the leading experts in interspecies agriculture, landed beside him with a soft thump. "Remembering when it was just you and some corn?" she asked, her voice warm with affection. "Sometimes I miss the quiet," Tejo admitted. "But then I look at what we've built, and I know it was worth it." They walked together through the garden, past sections where young humans and dragons learned together, past laboratories where new forms of symbiotic life were being developed, past housing areas where families of both species lived side by side. "My people are singing again," Hana said. "For the first time in 50 years, our younglings are being born healthy and strong. The genetic locks have fully opened and our abilities are returning." "And your home world?" "Luminos is healing. The sealed caves have been reopened and the magnetic fields flow freely again. But more importantly, we are no longer afraid. We can work openly to restore the damaged worlds." They stopped at a memorial garden that honored both the dragons who had died during the years of hiding and the humans who had fallen during the conflicts that followed first contact. It was a reminder that change, even positive change, came with costs. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Tejo asked. Hana considered this seriously. "I think we made the only choice that led to a future worth living in." A message chime from Tejo's communicator interrupted his thoughts. It was from So Young, now stationed on a joint terraforming project near the galactic rim. "Dad," her voice said through the speaker, "you need to see this. We've just made contact with another species. They're plant-based, incredibly old, and they say they've been waiting for gardeners to find them. I think your little farm started something bigger than any of us imagined." Tejo smiled. The galaxy was full of wonders waiting to be discovered, species waiting to be helped, worlds waiting to be healed. "Ready for another adventure?" Hana asked, having heard the message. "I'm an old farmer," Tejo said. "All I know how to do is grow things." "That's exactly what the galaxy needs," Hana replied. As the twin suns set over the endless garden, painting the crystal formations with rainbow light, Tejo thought about the day when 12 desperate dragons had landed in his small field. He had expected to live out his days in quiet solitude, growing simple crops for simple people. He never expected to help plant the seeds of a new kind of civilization, but as he watched young dragons and humans working together to tend a garden that stretched to the horizon and beyond, he realized that sometimes the most important changes begin with the smallest acts of kindness. A farmer who chose to help instead of hide. A daughter who chose trust over safety. A species that chose growth over conquest. In the end, that was all it took to change the galaxy. The garden grew, and with it, hope for a future where all species could flourish together under the patient light of distant stars. Years later, when other species asked about the great transformation that had turned the galaxy from a place of conflict into a network of garden worlds, they were always told the same story. It began with a human farmer who never expected what would happen when a herd of alien dragons approached him for help, but he helped anyway, and everything changed.